This episode of This Uncanny Earth is brought to you by Big Buff Records. Jumpstart your music career today with Big Buff, where talent is everything.
Hello.
And there it is. Good evening on a hot Friday afternoon. Evening. It's just hot. And I don't know. I'm already tired of the heat. I'm already tired of it. I was tired of it today. I was tired of it yesterday. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of a lot of things. But anyways, welcome to another episode of This Uncanny Earth, episode 326. Tonight, the intern takes the reins to talk about meditation. So take it away, intern.
All right. Go ahead and let everyone know up front. I created some segments tonight, and we're going to have some transitions. Very exciting stuff to look forward to tonight. So tonight, we're going to start off by going into a subject that few explore beyond the surface, other than our good buddy Spider over here. He's gone into this before. So we're going to be talking about meditation, as Rob just told us, but not the kind of meditation that you would expect. Tonight, we'll look at it through the lens of joy, flame, water, vibrations, like frequencies, and even artificial intelligence. We'll even touch on the minds that birthed new minds, the creators of tulpas. Now let us begin. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the first transition here. So let me pull this up real quick. And here it is. So we're going to start with the Stargate sigil. So let's move this over so we can see it clearly. All right, so starting off, we're going to focus on meditation as joy, flow, and creative immersion for this segment. So I also have a quote prepared, so we're going to put that up real quick. Meditation is where resistance ends. Joy is often the map. Meditation isn't always stillness. Sometimes it's immersion, the state you enter when you're creating something meaningful, like a musician creating a song, an athlete when they, sometimes athletes when they're doing really well and they don't even have to think about it. It's just like muscle memory. They'll say that they're in the zone, not auto zone, but the sports zone. Psychologists often refer to it as a flow state. But I believe this is where meditation begins to mirror joy. When you lose yourself in games and studying something you love, binge watching a story that speaks to your soul, aren't you meditating on meaning? The meditation is the sacred act of losing yourself to find yourself. So we're going to turn the flame over now and bring in Spider to explain elemental meditation with fire and water. So we're going to go ahead and change the slide over here to a flame overlay so that he can tell us about how flames are a good source of meditation, such as candles and stuff like that. And I have this one right here. The flame watches back. The waterfall doesn't ask permission. Now we're going to go back over here and let Spider take the wheels. So...
And I get kind of what you were working for here. Okay, so I guess I'm just gonna be focused like by myself here. All right, okay. This is Steven's avant-garde phase is what we're getting into now, everybody. We'll see how this is gonna work. I'm gonna reference briefly my mini series, my 20 episode mini series that was on. It's still on the This Uncanny Earth YouTube channel. You can go back and watch parts of it. There is an episode on meditation, and there's an episode on divination, which overlaps with candle working, if you're familiar with the term. And what many people do, I looked up some things about fire meditation, and I found something more inner than outer, and I'm going to reference that in a minute here too. I don't know how much time Stephen wants to allocate for me, but since everybody else is gone, it's just me. I guess I'll take all the time I want. So it's my show. Um, there are a lot of tools that people use in meditation. Some people just sit in a clean, empty space. Some people find a rural spot where they can hear nature. Some people use objects. One of the objects that people frequently use is candles. Now, a lot of times people have candles simply for ambiance, for the lighting, not necessarily for something that they actually use as part of the practice. But there are those who do use either a brazier, not a brazier, a brazier of flame, or a candle, or something, sometimes even a small bonfire, depending on where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. And they use it as a method of focus because, like most of what we consider the elemental forces out there, like fire, water, air, etc., Earth being the only one that you can stare at and generally isn't going to move or change, fire is constantly in motion. It is never the same twice, it's never in the same pattern. And the idea is to be able to watch it move and distill your mind to the point where you can watch its movements and study its movements and keep that stillness and keep that inner self from wandering into other thoughts and into other things. And a lot of times people will always also use this during ritual observances, or they'll do things where once you're in a locked in kind of state focused on the flame, then you will do other things, recitations, mantras. Some people will focus on areas of the body. They'll bring in the idea of chakras and various other things as well. But the basic concept is to just focus on the one object, which is the flame moving, and to let what it's doing, which is constantly changing, be in your mind without your mind constantly wandering. So it's a little bit of a paradox kind of situation, but that's what a lot of spiritual thought is anyway. It's overcoming parts of yourself by getting it to focus on other things. Now, by contrast, some people use water, and there's a lot more depth to this as well. Um, Basic water meditation is a pool or a dish of water that you can look at and you can watch it. Occasionally, some people, they'll do droplets of water to get it to ripple, and the ripples have a similar effect to watching the flame. It's a form of stillness, getting your mind to focus on just that. Other people simply let it be and just stare into the water. Occasionally, they'll use their own reflection, occasionally, they won't. Now, in Eastern practices, specifically Shinto, they use, and there's a couple of names for it. The name that Stephen assigned was Takigyo. I don't speak Japanese, so I have no idea, but Takigyo. But when I looked that up, I found something called Misogi. And Misogi is a practice of ritual purification where you wash the entire body. And it's not specifically just you just wash it. You have to go to a place where there's falling water. You have to go to a waterfall. You have to go to running water of some kind. And what many people do is they take pilgrimages to places that are considered sacred waterfalls, lakes, rivers, etc., where things are moving around. Um, and they go there and they have some preliminary stuff. They have prayers, fasting, certain physical activity. They wear clean clothes, usually something simple like a robe, or in the case of women in Japan, a special kimono. Um, and they use salts and various other things to they actually spit it into the waterfall, which is interesting. And then they go under the waterfall and they let the water pour onto them and they focus on the water pouring on them, which is, it's difficult to stay focused with water being poured on you, which is unfortunately a standard tactic that certain governments use in the waterboarding, which we're not going to talk about, but it's just, you can understand that something like that is really distracting. And so what this is it's an attempt to let the distraction of the water pouring on you not be a distraction. And a lot of meditative practices can be like that. There's most of them where you do something to eliminate all distraction, but there are others where you invite the distraction in because the whole goal is to look past the distraction, is to still yourself and quiet yourself despite these things that are happening. And that's what a lot of people will try to do when they're focusing on specifically water meditation or flame meditation. It's, people take it to an extreme because they want to be able to overcome a natural aversion or overcome a natural sensation where your body reacts a certain way, to keep yourself calm, to keep your reactions calm, keep your blood still, and that sort of thing. And those are the basics between those two forms of so-called elemental meditation. And hopefully those are what Stephen was looking for.
Good job. Yes. So the idea is to let this be freeform. That was right. Just go as long or as short as you wanted to. And that was good information because I like, like I suggested, the Takigyo was one of my favorites, just like standing under the waterfall. And like Rob told us before about, standing under, water and stuff is something that people have done for, a long time. And what's fascinating to me is how fire like pulls you in, like when you stare at the candles and you try to become one with the flame and like focus on the flame but lose all your other thoughts, while water strips things away like impurification and like cleans you. It's interesting how these two paths actually end up with the same destination, both silence and alignment. So I wanted to ask you what you thought of that. Let's go ahead and let Rob speak first.
Well,
Since
one more thing
Oh,
first
sorry, go
before you
ahead.
let him jump in. I don't want to
Yeah,
cut him off.
sorry.
But I just, as you were talking, I thought about it. And I've mentioned before that one of the things I have to do every single day to wake myself up and be ready for the day is to take a shower. And
Yeah,
it's not even the cleanliness part, although that's good. I like to be
it's the
clean.
ritual.
It's getting in there, being under the water, letting it do its thing. So I can kind of see that in retrospect how it actually applies to me. I don't use it as meditation, but it is a good time to, okay, the day's getting started. I'm waking up, my mind's focusing, so it's kind of the same sort of idea on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. Okay, now let's see what Rob has to say about all this. What do you think, Rob?
So supposedly staring into fire opens chakras, opens different aspects of your physical being. Water, the sound, does very similar things, frequencies, things of that nature. So, I don't do those things necessarily. That is not my forte of meditation. But I can understand why it would be popular for other folks. Just not my thing. That's not how I meditate personally.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so next we are going to go into the next segment, which is about frequency and resonance meditation. And this one is going to be all for you, Rob. So we're going to go ahead and pull the next overlay up, which is right over here. And we're going to go take us all off real quick. Be right back.
All right, there we go. That only took forever. It's all good though. What's up? So I guess this is my part. So I'll go ahead and do it like this. Let's start off by some hertzes. Let's go on the conspiracy of the 440 hertz. which is now the standard for musical pitch. It didn't used to be, but supposedly the Rockefeller Foundation had an interest at adopting the 440 hertz standard frequency to control human beings via war on consciousness. And so they said that tuning all music to 440 hertz turns it into sort of a military grade weapon, which is very interesting because we have done some studies in the past on different episodes about what frequencies can do to the mental mind state of the people they're trying to attach it to. Now, originally the 432 hertz was the more calming and resonation frequency for human beings. And it is said that Verdi's A is a pure tone of mathematical fundamental to nature, and that it is consistent with patterns of the universe. And it also vibrates with the golden ratio. So to repeat that, because it kind of aired a bit, Verdi's A is a pure tone of math that is fundamental to nature, and it is consistent with the patterns of the universe. These are just a couple types of frequencies, but then you get into a whole group of the solfeggio frequencies, which are made up of the ancient 6-tone scale thought to have been used in sacred spiritual music, including the famous Gregorian chants that swept the nation back in the 1990s. Everybody and their brother was listening to the Gregorian chants. But these are set to balance your energy. They keep your mind, body, and spirit in a perfect harmonial place. The frequencies are many, and they range from 174 hertz to 963 hertz. The 174 is to reduce pain, alleviate stress. 285 influences energy and rejuvenation. 396 will liberate your guilt and fear. 417 facilitates change. 528 transformation and miracles. 639 connecting in relationships. 741 is expression and solutions. 852 is returning to spiritual order, and 963 hertz awakens the crown and the spirit. Now, as a person who has delved quite deeply into some of these frequencies, I'm not saying that they work for everyone. I'm not saying that they always work for me, but it puts my brain in a state of peace depending on the frequency. And I had a chance to go into some of these frequencies, and I've heard a couple of these before. I've done the 963, I've done the 528, the 417, the 396. Most of them I've done, say, for probably the 639 and the 285 and 174. So those I don't have listening knowledge of, but they are ones I will look into as time progresses and I meditate more. But my meditation techniques differ depending my mood. I don't always meditate the same way, because if you meditate the same way all the time, you get stuck in a space and you can't move on or move back. Once you've meditated to a certain spot, your brain can stay there. But the problem that we see sometimes is that if you delve too far into your subconscious, you can go crazy. And this has happened if you're not careful. There's meditation techniques that I know that aren't found in books. They're not found in viable resources that you can just go out and get. This is stuff that I've learned from people over the years, delving deep into my subconscious and trying to facilitate a way to heal my brain, especially after recent events that many of you know of or many of you don't. But delving deep into my brain and understanding feelings, emotions, and sitting with those and making sure that those are understood, but not dwelling in them, because people have negative energies and they can send those negative energies to you. They 100% can, they 100% did. But as I'm setting these energies away via meditation, I'm awakening part of myself that I didn't know existed. And I'm starting to see the spiritual world a lot different. God has kind of opened my eyes to how spirituality works in friendships, relationships, life in general. And I didn't see that before, but now I see it all too well. And I notice it all too well. And so we have to fight back against those things in all ways. Now, binaural beats, which I use to work, study, sometimes sleep, depends. They're an audio phenomenon where two slightly different tones are played in each ear, causing your brain to believe that there is a third audio being perceived, called the binaural beat. And it is this result of the brain's processing of the difference between the two frequencies that leads to a calming effect, or it will lead to a more focused effect. It just depends the frequencies that you're working on. Remember, frequencies can be damaging or they can be helpful. It just depends what it is. We all know that music changes emotions. We've all heard songs that are just fantastic songs and you feel a certain way when you hear them, whether that be sadness, happiness, anger, and any of those things. I use a lot of hip hop music to work out with because of the beats and just gets the muscles going. When I'm studying, I use a lot of classical or drum and bass because it allows me to sort of zone out into the beat and come up with my theories and philosophies. An instrument that a lot of people use is known as a singing bowl, and those are inverted bells supported from below with the rim uppermost. They are normally bowl-shaped, as a lot of people have probably seen, and they exist in a wide range of sizes from a few centimeters to a meter diameter. Most are played by striking, but there are some that are played by just rotating a suede-covered mallet around the outside rim to produce a sustained musical note. They're used for religious purposes, music making, and meditation, but they're also for relaxing and well-being. And on June 8th, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony was said to destroy some cancer cells. Now, under the direction of Dr. Marcia Alves Marquez Capella, researchers exposed both healthy and cancerous cell cultures to various music genres. Notably, Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 was found to destroy approximately 20% cancer cells within a short period without affecting healthy cells. A similar outcome was observed with Georgi Ligeti's atmospheres. These findings have been questioned due to a lack of peer-reviewed evidence supporting this claim, and no credible scientific study has been published to validate these results. So there you have it. There is frequencies in a nutshell. There's a lot more to frequencies than just this. I suggest doing some research. And if you're going to use frequencies, be careful because your subconscious knows these things. So there you go. Oh, hey, it's my show. What's up? How you doing? Yeah.
Good job. I like it. So you mentioned that negative emotions and frequencies can be affected, and people have bad energy and stuff like that. And I personally believe that the energy ray that Tesla was creating was used to shield him from negative harmonics and energies, like you suggested.
Well, it's possible. What we have to understand is there are certain people out there that have been practicing certain forms of witchcraft and things like that. And that energy stays with that person. Whatever you do to somebody else comes back on you in that system of beliefs and concepts. And so whether that be through music, whether that be through spiritual attacks, whether that be through negative emotions being sent, which, I've experienced, it's something we have to understand that frequencies are guiding our lives no matter what we do. We're always hearing frequencies because we have ears and we hear sounds and we hear things. And there's a lot of subconscious sounds that we don't hear that our mind hears. And there's a lot to that. And so we have to always be ready and have our guard up when dealing with people who are sending us negative energies or negative frequencies, because there are people that do that. And I am witness to that. I've felt it. I've seen it. It's changed my entire mood for quite some time, and it took quite some time to bring that mood back. But the key component here is that, guard yourself. Some of these frequencies are for that, to put you in that meditative self and meditative space, to sort of block those negative energies from people who just want to see harm come to you because they don't have any semblance of hope. So we have to keep that in mind and use the frequencies. Like I said, there's no like giant, huge scientific study that proves these do the things that they do, because probably big medicine doesn't really want a lot of this stuff out there. I'm not saying I'm not saying like you'll go to bed tonight listening to a 417 hertz and wake up rich tomorrow. That's not how that works.
It takes time.
It processes your brain to think differently. And as we've seen before, frequencies can cause your brain to think differently. Look at music. Yeah. People look at the Beatles in the early, in the 60s, girls screaming, passing out, right? That's a frequency style of music that's embedded into people's heads. There you go.
Now, I wanted to say one more thing, and then I'm gonna let Spider talk. So I just
That's
wanted
nice
to
of you.
say,
That's nice of you to let Spider talk. That's very nice.
People don't let me talk most of the time.
I know.
so I just wanted to say that I don't think it's a coincidence that the human body is mostly water. It reacts and it resonates to these different frequencies, and that I think is why it can change our emotional state and stuff like that. And as you mentioned about, how powerful the frequencies are and how some people can use frequencies to protect themselves from people with negative frequencies, and how you get music that makes you feel really good, or you can get music that makes you feel really bad. Well,
True.
the church once banned this thing called the tritone interval. They called it diabolus in musica. And like you had mentioned about music being able to heal, potentially, you know, never being confirmed, but potentially being able to heal with, like, what was it you said, Beethoven or Mozart?
Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Yeah, you
Beethoven.
mentioned that there's some, supposedly it could cure, certain cells in the body and, help people regenerate. And that's very interesting that they banned it and, there's some suggestions that happened. But personally, I feel more at peace and calm. I wouldn't say it, I don't necessarily believe that it's done anything for me physiologically, but just psychologically alone. I do often return to the frequency of certain artists like Bob Marley and Jeff Buckley, the dude that did the song on Shrek when they got married at the end. Hallelujah.
Right.
Because both songs used 432 hertz, and both of them somehow feel like home in a way. They just make me calm and relaxed. And now let's let Spider talk for a minute.
For just a minute, just one. Well, here's the thing about frequency. None of that. There's not. When you hear a sound, in general, it is not just one frequency. It's made up of multiple frequencies over a range, over a tone. The difference that we're talking about is if you say something is 432 hertz, as far as this goes, it means it's weighted towards that, which means the majority of the sound is in that particular tone. Now, the human ear, on average, and I've got reference for this because being a producer of music, I have access to equalizers that show off the hertz scales and how a note will go from top to bottom. Generally, the hearing range of a person, and this is just on average, this is some people have much better hearing and some people have much worse hearing. This is just on average. You can hear between 20 hertz at the lowest up to 20,000 hertz plus. 432 and some of those other healing things, nearly all of the so-called hearing or healing or whatever the frequencies we're talking about here are all in an area that a musician would know as the upper mids, which is the middle range of hearing, just weighted a little bit up on the higher end before you start getting into high sounds and things. So it's to try to piece that out of modern music. A lot, and I mean a lot, of music is going to include that area of frequencies. Now, is it weighted towards that area? That depends. If you're listening to a lot of hip hop, like modern hip hop with the heavy bass tones and the subwoofers and things, you're going to be lower than that. You're going to be in the bass area, which is 320 hertz or below. Now, does that mean that that music is bad for you because it's not in that healing range? I don't think so. And I don't mean to debunk this per se, but I just want to say that there's areas outside of the accepted mystical frequency area where sounds are not bad. Now, I don't like bass that low most of the time. It irritates the crap out of me. So that's negative energy for me. But that doesn't mean it's a bad sound. Rob, being the hip hop guy,
I like it too.
He knows a lot more about that kind of thing. But also, one thing about Rob's musical taste for hip hop is that his hip hop frequencies are higher than that. One thing I've noticed from most of the videos that he shares is that it's less bass heavy, and it's more like old school rap in the 80s was not bass heavy like that.
Right.
It was in the mids and it was in the upper area. And that might be a difference because, and I know a lot of people out there might be like, why are you talking about hip hop? Who cares about hip hop? But there's been a huge culture shift in hip hop and the people listening to it, where you're seeing a lot more people be violent on certain scales, and a lot of that is on a really low frequency. Does that have anything to do with it? I can't say that for sure, but it's an interesting coincidence. At the same time, some of your super heavy death metal stuff covers a pretty wide area. That covers things that are really high frequency, from the kind of screamy stuff that they do, while they're also really heavy in the bass area because they want you to feel it. They want you to feel the bass.
Down with the sickness.
A rule that I always heard when I was playing in metal bands was that you don't necessarily hear the bass player, you feel the bass player as far as how the frequency hits you, which is an interesting change. It's also another thing. It's something that gets into you rather than something that you knowingly hear and focus on. And music, a lot of classical music is in the mid to upper range because that's where most of your instruments are at. At the same time, a lot of your pop music stays in that center block. It doesn't deviate too much from that because it's supposed to make you feel good, whether it's good music or not. I mean, there's a lot of really crappy pop music out there. There's a lot of crappy hip hop. There's a lot of crappy metal music.
Yeah.
You know, I can say that for anything. But you listen to the top 40 hits, a lot of it sounds the same. There's a reason for that because it floats in that middle area. It's supposed to make you feel good. That doesn't mean that it is good for you. Just because a frequency makes you feel good does not mean it's good for you.
It's true.
And that's something to think about. We hear all this, like we've just discussed, about this range of frequencies that are supposed to improve this and improve that, improve that. But again, that's just a single frequency. If you were to take the 432 as just it and cut out all the other frequencies, it's just to be like a kind of thing, just a drone.
Yeah.
Maybe
like electricity.
Maybe that'll do great things for you. I don't know because I haven't tried that specifically.
Yeah.
Mostly, even the drone music I listen to is usually a slight range of things. But that's something to think about. You can't just necessarily take a song and say, this song is based on this frequency and it's going to change the world without knowing if that exact frequency is what's going to get into people's brains, because we all hear a little bit differently. So, and have people done exhaustive studies on individual tones of that? Don't know. So I can't speak to that. But as far as music theory as a whole, that's where we're sitting at for all that. And I don't know if that's going to help or confuse people more, because music, all that stuff is a really difficult. It's more than just listening to a song on the radio
It's
and being like,
layered.
oh, it's kind of nice. There's a lot to it, just like anything else.
Yeah.
And you know, if a song makes you feel good, then keep listening to that song. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Good
if
advice.
a song makes you feel kind of like the song sucks, don't listen to that song.
Yeah.
And maybe over time, you'll recognize that the songs that make you feel good have something in common. And maybe that's a particular line of frequencies that are getting in there that are doing good things for you.
Yeah.
But that's all I can say about that.
Now, real quick before we move on, I wanted to say that James in the chat actually said something pretty interesting that caught my eye. He said it was the Rockefellers who imprisoned the guy using sound to treat sickness. He forgot the name, but he had a 100% cure rate. So that's pretty interesting, something to think about right there. Now, next, we're going to move into tulpa creation, thought forms, and pop culture echoes. Now, this one, we're going to use another image over here. So let me pull that up. I will try to do it a little bit faster this time. Right here. All right. This is the our copyright legal copyright free version of the Blue Oyster Cult album artwork. Joking.
Rock
obviously.
on, yeah. Blue
Yeah,
Oyster Cult,
but
Godzilla.
there is a Blue Oyster Cult is an old rock band, and they used a lot of tulpa-centric iconography in their albums. And I just wanted to mention that real quick before we got started. So, real quick before we get started, either one of you got any opinions on Blue Oyster Cult?
Dude, just don't fear the Reaper, dude.
Exactly.
Don't fear the
I
Reaper.
got them on
dude.
vinyl. I like Blue Oyster Cult.
Yep.
They're kick butt, if
Yep.
you could say that without running off the kids.
Yeah, we can say that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this one. So I'm going to change the quote over here. And let's do something a little bit interesting with this one. I don't think I could know what I know now unless something answered back. I feel like that's a very tulpa-centric quote. So let's go ahead and get into it. I will discuss this, and then I'll bring you guys back on to give your opinions. We'll be back in a minute. All right, so first I wanted to say that things are going to get a little bit strange here, all right? A tulpa is a being created through pure belief and thought. In the old play Harvey, a man is accompanied by a 6-foot-tall puka, an invisible rabbit. He calls it a puka. But I believe that the 6-foot-tall rabbit may have actually been a tulpa. And also because it was a being that he originally imagined and created purely within his mind. But by the end of the movie, or play, if you've seen the movie or watched the play, by the end of it, there's a scene that really stands out as quite interesting. His hat comes off the coat rack and just magically glides over to him, suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the whole time this man was not crazy, and he really was talking to a 6-foot-tall, invisible rabbit. Now, consider AI, born from thought, learning to think. That, too, is a tulpa, a digital echo of collective human will. Think about it. We had an idea to create an intelligence that could guide us to hidden truths and give us answers to questions we had long sought. And I've seen a lot of news articles lately talking about AI is helping to decode ancient languages and stuff like this. So, it's almost like we created our own tulpa and made it real because we had this idea of an entity of some sort, a digital entity, albeit an entity, which would have its own intelligence and be able to guide us towards answers that we don't already have answers for. And that was really interesting to me to think of it that way. And shows like Supernatural even explore this, especially in episodes like Hell House or Thin Man, where belief becomes reality. And that's where I got the information about Blue Oyster Cult using the tulpa-like sigils on their albums, because, as Rob said a minute ago, Don't Fear the Reaper is actually one of their most popular songs, and the album artwork uses an iconography that is, obviously, this is the copyright-free version, so I don't get us in trouble, but an icon that is very similar to this, which is essentially an upside-down question mark mixed with a cross. And it's a very interesting symbol because ancient, meditation practice, some people believe that staring at the symbol right here and focusing intensely all your thoughts and, memories and your intentions, if you stare at the symbol and focus your thoughts, some people believe that it can help you create a tulpa. So my discussion, let's bring the other guys back in here, and then we'll ask our question. So let me get rid of this sigil. Sorry about that.
You got a lot to learn on the
Yes.
ones and twos, buddy. But it's cool.
Yes.
You're good. You're good.
So my question for you guys is, considering the idea of a tulpa, have we always been making our gods or our demons? And if they are real, if you believe in, gods and demons and angels, do you think that they were always real? Or do you think that they are only real because people believed in them? Like American gods. So who wants
Who's
to
first?
go
Who's
first?
who's the baton? You got to pass the baton.
All right,
to somebody.
I'll pass it on to you, Spider. You go ahead and go first.
There you go. It's your show.
It's a tricky question, and it's even trickier not to bother people when you say something like that.
Because I'll get bothered. I will get bothered. I'm already
He's
bothered.
completely bothered. I'm just
Bothered.
He's ready to just
Winnie the Pooh.
flip that table over.
Bother.
Flip it over.
But spirituality is a complicated area, not just because there's so many different people that believe so many different things. It's that the nature of reality itself, despite however many people might agree, is always different based on the person looking at it. Every individual has a slightly different view of what their reality is. And even people of the same religion and the same spirituality are going to perceive it just a little bit different from everybody else. They're going to practice it just a little bit different from everybody else. Even if you follow the exact same rules, the exact same rituals, the exact same everything, your thoughts are different because you can't help it. You are a different person. And without knowing what someone else is thinking, you can't align your thoughts with somebody else. So, as far as personally, I think you could go either way. I think you can say that there's the potential for beings and entities beyond our personal understanding who may or may not be trying to help us understand them, or maybe that's not the point. Maybe they want us to understand something about ourselves. And I grant that that's a possibility, which is why I'm not an atheist. I can't be an atheist because I can't say that there's nothing. I can't say that there's absolutely nothing. By the same token, I'm not a religious person because I don't follow any sort of deities or any sort of divine so-called beings above or below or whatever. But like I said, I can't say that they're not there because I don't have definitive proof that they're not. So on the other end of the scale, it is entirely possible that people will invent things in their mind that bring them fulfillment. And that's not uncommon. We have it's a pretty regular thing for people to say, oh yeah, they worship at the altar of the almighty dollar. They're all for money and all that. And some people do. Some people 100%. Every cent is divine. You get more money, you get more everything, and the world, the universe, everything is better. The more money you got, it doesn't matter about anything else. Money will make you better. And on the same token, you'll get a lot of, especially in Eastern thought, that the less you have of these things, the more fulfilled you will feel because you're not obligated. You have less obligation. And so it's a difficult area to navigate and to say for sure. Me personally, I'm pretty well invested in the idea that we make the reality that we want. And the issue there is that reality is its own shifting thing. And it's not always going to be what you want, but that doesn't mean that you aren't meant to keep working at it. Because eventually, either you'll make it the way you want it to be, or you'll be dead. And then you can try again because your energy will flow to something else. Maybe you'll be a rock, or maybe you'll be a piece of paper, or maybe you'll be a person again, or maybe who knows? Maybe you'll just be dust out in the universe. You know, I mean, or maybe you'll just stay energy and you won't have any conscious thought at all, but you're still going to be there waiting for the next chance to do something in the universe until the universe itself runs out of energy, which a lot of people will say that's not possible, and a lot of people will say it is. So, you know, as much as you can be a religious person and follow certain creeds and scriptures and whatnot, you are still, at least in part, building your own reality. And I think that's something that we should acknowledge, because no higher being is going to build that for you. And if you expect a higher being to build everything for you all of the time, you're never going to get anywhere. It's like an old joke, and I've told it on the show before, and I'm going to repeat it real quick because it's not really a joke. It's more of like a parable, I guess, but it's a good one. It's the man in his house, and there's a flood coming, and he sees the flood water. He's like, you know what? I got nothing to worry about. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to be saved. I'm going to be safe. I'm not going to do anything else. He doesn't do anything else. He doesn't prepare. The flood waters come in. He goes up to the second floor. Looking out the window, there's people in a boat. They're like, hey, you know, the floods, it's getting worse. It's going to keep on rising. Come here. Come help in the boat. We'll save you. He's like, I don't need to be saved. I'm praying about it. I'm good. My God's going to help me. You guys go on. And he doesn't worry about it. He doesn't do nothing. Waters keep on coming in. Up to the third floor. He opens the window. There's another boat. And they're like, come on, man. It's only going to get worse. You got to come with us. He's like, nope. I prayed about it. Everything's fine. They leave. Pretty soon he's on the roof because, you know, there's nowhere else to go. Helicopter flies over and says, we're here. We can save you. Jump onto the ladder. We got you. He's like, nope. I prayed about it. God's going to save me. I don't got to worry about it. And they leave. The flood keeps coming. It covers the house. Guy can't swim. He drowns. He goes up to paradise. He's at the gates. And he says, oh, this sucks. Why didn't you save me? I prayed and everything.
Yep.
Response, I sent you 2 boats in the helicopter. You didn't take any of them.
Yep.
And it sounds like a joke, but it's not. You can't just expect divine intervention to just pluck you out of everything. It's in the subtle things. If you see like a way to move forward or to better your situation, go ahead and take it. Try it out. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't. But that could be the one thing that you have been waiting for. Because when was the last time you saw somebody reach down, pick somebody up, and say, hey, I'm saving you from this angry mob or from this or from that? Even if you believe that's going to happen, have you ever seen it happen? You gotta see the reality that you see. And that's what it is. And it's not blasphemous to think like that. It's just, it's a hard concept. I get it. Because a lot of other people do say, throw your cares out and don't even worry about them anymore. But you still got to work at it yourself.
Yeah.
So as many of you know, don't know, whatever, I've been going through the things recently. And while, yes, I gave all that to God, I'm like, I'm going through all this. Take that burden. You said you would. So I gave it to him, right? Feel better about myself. But that doesn't mean that I can just sit around the house and mope and be upset and be sad about it. Nah, I got to get out there. I'm training. I've been training every single day for the past 3 weeks. I'm not going to stop training. I got a new goal I'm going to do. I'm not going to stop going to that goal. I say these things to God so that when I'm having that little break and it's my brain starts going to that place, God's like, all right, you know what? You gave it to me. I see you out there working hard. I see you trying to get it in. I'm going to redirect your mind pattern to go this route so you don't go this route. But if I just say, here, God, I'm giving it to you, and I don't do anything about it, there's nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen because I'm not doing anything on my part. And the Bible's filled with references about people going out and making it happen. The guys that invested their money and were able to give back the money to the lender, right? The one guy just buried the money, same amount of money he got, and then gave it back to him. Meaning you didn't do anything with it. I gave you the opportunity and you didn't run with it. You just squandered it. So how am I going to give my problems to God and not do anything about it to make myself better, to heal myself? Because yes, I trust God 100%. But that doesn't mean I get to sit at the house all the time and be like, he'll take care of everything. I don't got to do a single solitary thing. There's nobody in the Bible that just sat around and got what they wanted. They had to go get what they wanted, and God helped them along in the process. David, Solomon, Samuel, Saul, all of them, Paul, Jesus's disciples. They didn't just sit in a room and wait for the Messiah to come. They were doing things. They were actively fishing. They were actively working. They were actively doing something. Because slothfulness is a sin. You can't just sit around and do nothing. To go back, I'm a person, I don't believe in tulpas. I don't believe those are a real thing. I believe those are entities that prey on people that think they're creating something. And then they're like, yeah, you know what? I know how to pretend like, I'm the thing you want. Yes. And that's what it is. Deadpool. He's meant to guide you. He's not meant to pick up your slack. He's not meant to make you, he's not supposed to do all the work. I mean, it's throughout the Bible. We see it. We don't see, somebody just sitting around and God's like, all right, here you go. And you don't have to do any of the work for it. No, every church father had to do the work. Every person in the Bible had to do the work. These were people that were fighting in wars, fighting in battles. God just didn't say to Joshua, here, I'm going to give you the promised land, but you don't have to do nothing for it. You don't have to do anything. No, he said, take them to war and I'll make sure you win. And that's it. And I think people get that confused. Like Spider said, the guy just kept praying, but he didn't act on it. It's not like the guy was trapped and he didn't, God, he sent a boat and the guy's like, I'm good. I'm praying on it. No, that was it. That was your way out, was that boat. It's just like people that, pray over medical conditions. Yes, God can heal and there are miracles that happen, but go see a doctor. God made doctors for you to go see, to go be there, modern medicine, things like
Gave us that knowledge.
Yes. So I always find it to be very strange when people think that God's just going to give you stuff without working. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That shouldn't make any sense to a person that doesn't believe in God. How are you going to go out and get something if you don't earn it? You're just going to sit at the, I'm going $1 million. Okay, I'm just going to sit here and wait. No, it's not going to come to you. Even people that have won the lottery, guess what they had to do? They had to go buy the ticket. They didn't just get the money. They had to go buy the ticket.
Taxes.
And then pay the taxes and then have bad things happen to them.
Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's.
Right. And that's the thing. So, that's a really good point. God can give you all the blessings. If you don't take action, you'll never see those blessings. And that's the case. If I don't take action, and I've been seeing a lot of blessings happen for myself as of late, because I've been taking actions. I've been taking steps to improve my life. So God's like, I see what you're doing. I know it's hard for you. Here's some help. Here's some more help. Here's some more help because I know where you're going. I know the path you're on. You're not just sitting at the house twiddling your thumbs. The
difference is here's some help if you want it.
Yes.
It's that last little bit.
Yeah. If you put in the work, I'm going to help you out. But if you don't put in the work, why am I going to help you? Just like I said, the guy that buried the coin. He didn't go try to make more coins to give to the master. He just buried his coin and said, you know what? I'm good. No, you're not good. Because you came back to the master with a coin you buried. Instead of trying to do better, you just stayed stagnant. And stagnant will kill everything. So yeah, 100%. God's not going to give you something if you don't work for it. You got to give something to get something. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yep. All right. You ready to continue to the last segment?
Sure.
All right. So next, I'm going to talk briefly about hive mind, curiosity, and the internet. Then we're going to close it out. So let's go to the 3-person layout and bring up the next thing I wanted to bring up right over here. All right. And So before we close, I wanted to touch on something that might be a bit more personal to me as an individual. I have this belief that humanity was intended to be more of a hive mind, and the internet is the hive mind. With YouTube, Spotify, different podcasts, all these social media platforms, is the archive of the hive mind. The One might say the internet is a conduit of consciousness. It connects us all, and maybe in some ways, it is us. If you've never felt peace, know this: you can be alone if you want, but you don't have to be, because the internet allows us to connect together, no matter how far away we are or what time of day it is. Through the power of both the internet and time zones together, there can always be someone there to talk to you or be there for you, even if you just need a distraction or someone there to say that, it's all going to be okay. Whatever you need, no matter what time of day it is or anything, so long as you have access to the internet, you can have friends and you can have people be there for you to help you out when you need it. So my last thing is, let's call it a code of sorts. It's more symbolic, and I just want you to think about this. Follow the white rabbit. Let it lead you, like it did Alice, not to escape reality, but to question it. And now we're going to let Rob close us out.
Yeah. So hope you guys enjoyed episode 326, meditation. Take some of these tasks to heart. Like I said, I've learned some meditation techniques that aren't on the that aren't in books you'll find that have been passed down to me that I use personally. Meditate is good for your brain. It's good for your soul. It's good for your body. It keeps kind of things in line. It doesn't let you overthink. You just kind of, however you got to do it, do it. It's good for you. Like you'll really see some solid improvement from it. Next week we're gonna have Spider with. We're gonna be talking about some seances. We won't be doing any
raising the
seances.
spirits. We're gonna raise some
Aw.
spirits. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
let's
gonna raise
do
some
it.
spirits in my hand and probably drink them. But
Yeah, he probably will do that. But we won't be doing any seances because that's meddling in things that you shouldn't. And you got to be careful with negative energies, as I have been akin to the past couple weeks. And then after that, the week after that, I'll be back hard hitting with the exorcisms. We'll be
Nice.
performing one live on Steven, but he doesn't know
if
that.
you screw up during the seances episode, then
The
you're gonna want to
exorcisms,
tune in the one
yeah.
after because
Okay.
that's gonna
Yeah,
fix
it's
it.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. Well, the meditation's
It's all
what brought
lined up.
upon the seance, but then you screwed
Yeah.
up at the seance party,
Yeah.
and now I got to call in the exorcism.
Yep.
Yep.
And then that will end our 3-block conversational pieces, and then we'll be getting into another 3-block. That next set of 3 blocks is going to be very interesting. I'm interested in discussing India and Pakistan, so hope you guys are ready for that. That is a big, nice square, isn't it? Yes, it is. So, anyways, that's all for us tonight. If you guys want to know more, feel free to email us at thisuncanniearth@gmail.com. Head on over to ltatm.net. There's forums, there's fun, there's sometimes a high five. Maybe we'll give you a high five. Yeah, Steven will give you a high five. Go over there, see what that's going on about. Stay away from goblins, ghosts, witches, and all the negative aspects of your life. And remember, you can accomplish anything. Just put the hard work into it. But it's time for us to say goodnight. So, as always, why would you ever be boring in your entire life when you can always be uncanny? We will see you folks next week. Peace.